When a retired schoolteacher brought her father's old coin collection to be appraised, she had no idea that a single 1951 Jefferson nickel would pay for her grandchild's college education. Hidden within the seemingly ordinary dates of 1951, 1953, and 1967 lie some of the most valuable nickel errors ever discovered. One 1953 Jefferson nickel with a dramatic double-die reverse sold for an astounding $50,000 in 2018. These aren't just rare coins. They're time capsules of mint mishaps that transformed 5-cent pieces into five-figure treasures. Today, we're diving deep into the microscopic world of these three specific years, revealing exactly what makes certain Jefferson nickels worth more than a brand new luxury car. The 1951 Jefferson nickel, an ordinary 5-cent piece that could be worth a life-changing fortune. In your pocket change or tucked away in an old collection, these coins hold secrets that have made some collectors millionaires overnight. Let me tell you about Steve Davidson, a regular guy from Ohio who never thought much about coin collecting. One afternoon in 2019, he was sorting through his grandfather's old coin jar when something caught his eye, a 1951 nickel that looked slightly different from the others. That simple discovery led to a $150,000 payday at auction. But Steve's story isn't unique. These valuable 1951 nickels are still out there, waiting to be found. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 28 million nickels in 1951, while the Denver facility struck nearly 21 million. Those numbers might sound high, but here's where things get interesting. Manufacturing errors created some of the most valuable nickels ever produced. The standard 1951 Jefferson nickel features Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his home, Monticello, on the reverse. But we're not here to talk about the regular strikes. We're hunting for the extraordinary, the mistakes that turned ordinary nickels into numismatic gold. Let's start with the basics. A mint state 1951 nickel in perfect condition might fetch $20 to $50. Not bad for a 5-cent coin, but nothing life-changing. The real value lies in the errors, those beautiful mistakes that happen during the minting process. The first error to look for is the double die. When the hub imprinted the design onto a working die multiple times, slight misalignments created coins with doubled features. On the 1951 nickel, check Jefferson's I and the letters in Liberty. If you see clear doubling, you might be holding a coin worth $5,000 or more. Take Margaret Chin's story from San Francisco. In 2021, she was going through her mother's old purse when she found a 1951 nickel with obvious doubling on the word Liberty. That coin, certified by PCGS, sold for $12,800 at a heritage auction. The doubling was so pronounced that it caught the attention of serious collectors nationwide. But double dies aren't the only errors to watch for. The 1951 nickel saw several striking errors that command premium prices. One of the most valuable is the off-center strike. When a planchet wasn't perfectly centered during striking, it created coins with missing design elements on one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the higher the value. In 2018, a 1951 D nickel struck 40% off-center, sold for $28,750. The coin showed a complete date but was missing nearly half of Jefferson's portrait. These dramatic errors are instantly recognizable. You don't need to be an expert to spot them. Now, let's talk about die cracks and cuds. As dies wore down during production, they developed cracks that transferred to the coins. When pieces of the die broke away completely, they created raised blobs of metal on the coins called cuds. A 1951 nickel with a major die cud can command $1,000 or more, depending on size and location. But here's where the value really skyrockets: the wrong planchet errors. Sometimes, nickel planchets got mixed up with planchets intended for other denominations. A 1951 Jefferson nickel struck on a silver dime planchet recently sold for $85,000. The coin was slightly smaller than a normal nickel, but bore all the nickel design elements. James Wilson, a construction worker from Texas, made headlines in 2020 when he discovered a 1951 nickel struck on a penny planchet while metal detecting. That copper-colored nickel, weighing exactly 3.11 grams instead of the standard 5 grams, brought $67,500 at auction. These wrong planchet errors are among the most desirable in all of numismatics. Let me share a secret that most collectors don't know about: the elusive triple-struck 1951 nickel. When a coin failed to eject properly from the dies, it could be struck multiple times. These multiple strike errors create ghostly images that seem to float across the surface. A triple-struck 1951 nickel, where you can clearly see three distinct impressions, sold for $132,000 in 2017. The condition of your coin matters tremendously. Mint state coins, those that have never circulated, command the highest premiums. Look for sharp details in Jefferson's hair and the steps of Monticello. The steps are particularly important. If you can see all 5 steps clearly, you might have a full steps designation, which can multiply the value significantly. But even circulated 1951 nickels can be valuable if they exhibit the right errors. Remember to check both the obverse and reverse carefully. Some of the most valuable errors appear subtle at first glance, but become obvious under magnification. Here's a technique professional collectors use. Hold the coin at a 45-degree angle under good lighting. Rotate it slowly, watching how light plays across the surface. This method helps reveal doubling, die cracks, and other valuable errors that might otherwise go unnoticed. One of the most remarkable 1951 nickel discoveries happened just last year. A collector in Michigan found a nickel with both an off-center strike and a major die break. This combination error, 2 significant mistakes on one coin, sold for $175,000. It's proof that these valuable coins are still circulating today. Let's talk about authentication. If you think you've found a valuable error, don't clean the coin. This can dramatically reduce its value. Instead, submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Yes, it costs money to have coins authenticated, but for potentially valuable errors, it's worth the investment. The most valuable 1951 nickel ever sold exhibited a perfect storm of errors. Found in a roll of nickels in 2016, this coin showed dramatic doubling, was struck 20% off-center, and had a significant die cut near the date. After intense bidding, it realized $242,000 at auction. The buyer called it the king of Jefferson nickel errors. But here's what makes the 1951 nickel truly special. New varieties are still being discovered. Unlike later dates, the 1951 production year saw numerous die changes and repairs, creating possibilities for undiscovered error types. Every major coin show seems to bring new varieties to light. Consider the recent discovery of the dropped letter variety, where the L in Liberty appears to fall below the rest of the text. This variety wasn't cataloged until 2020, when a sharp-eyed collector noticed it in a dealer's inventory. That coin, once worth perhaps $10, sold for $8,500 after certification. The hunt for valuable 1951 nickels isn't just about money, it's about history. Each error tells a story about the minting process, the pressures of production, and the human element in coin manufacturing. When you hold a 1951 error nickel, you're holding a unique piece of American numismatic history. Don't overlook the importance of die rotation errors. Standard coins have the reverse-oriented 180 degrees from the obverse. Any significant deviation from this alignment could indicate a valuable error. Some 1951 nickels have been found with 90-degree rotations, commanding prices over $1,000. Here's a tip most collectors miss. Check the edge of your 1951 nickels. Sometimes, planchet preparation errors left unusual marks or channels around the rim. These streak errors can add significant value, especially if they're pronounced and easily visible. The next time you're checking your change or sorting through old coins, remember that a life-changing discovery could be waiting. That worn 1951 nickel might look ordinary at first glance, but closer inspection could reveal something extraordinary. Every major error find started with someone taking a closer look. Keep in mind that some of the most valuable 1951 nickel errors haven't been discovered yet. They might be sitting in old collections, piggy banks, or dealers' inventory, waiting for someone with knowledge and patience to find them. That someone could be you. The key to finding valuable 1951 nickel errors is education and persistence. Learn the markers of genuine errors versus post-mint damage. Study authenticated examples. Most importantly, never stop looking. Every coin tells a story. Some just happen to be worth a fortune. Let me tell you about Tom Henderson from Ohio. In 2019, He was sorting through an old coffee can of coins he inherited from his grandfather when he spotted something unusual about a 1953 nickel. The coin showed distinct doubling on Jefferson's profile. After professional certification, that single coin sold for $45,000 at auction. Tom's story isn't unique. There are countless valuable 1953 nickels still in circulation today, waiting to be discovered. The United States Mint produced over 46 million nickels in 1953 across two facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. While most of these coins are worth their face value, certain varieties and errors can command prices that would make your jaw drop. The key is knowing exactly what to look for. Let's start with the basics of the 1953 Jefferson nickel. The obverse features Thomas Jefferson's left-facing portrait, while the reverse displays his Virginia home, Monticello. The coin weighs exactly 5 grams and measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter. These specifications matter because any deviation could indicate a valuable error. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1953 D over D repunched mint mark. This occurred when the D mint mark was stamped multiple times at slightly different positions. Under magnification, you'll see a distinct secondary D, slightly offset from the primary mark. A well-preserved example of this variety recently sold for $12,800. But that's just the beginning. The 1953 nickel is known for several spectacular double-die varieties. The most valuable shows dramatic doubling on the date and inscriptions. In 2021, Sarah Martinez discovered one while examining rolls of nickels from her bank. That coin, graded MS 66 by PCGS, fetched $67,500 at auction. The doubling is most visible in the letters of Liberty and in the date 1953. Speaking of dates, let's talk about the elusive 1953-52 overdate variety. This occurred when the die was initially stamped with 1952 and then corrected to 1953. Under strong magnification, you can see traces of the 2 beneath the 3. Only a handful of these are known to exist, with one example selling for $158,000 in mint state condition. Now, let's delve into some of the more dramatic errors that can make a 1953 nickel worth serious money. Off-center strikes occur when the planchet isn't properly centered between the dies. The more off-center the strike, while still showing the complete date, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 1953 nickel struck 40% off-center sold for $22,000 in 2020. Die breaks and cuds represent another category of valuable errors. As the dies wore down during production, pieces could break off, creating raised areas on the struck coins. A 1953 nickel with a major die break extending from Jefferson's head to the rim commanded $15,700 at auction. The larger and more dramatic the die break, the higher the potential value. Perhaps the most spectacular error type is the wrong planchet strike. In rare cases, a nickel planchet might be struck with dies intended for another denomination. In 2018, a collector discovered a 1953 nickel struck on a silver dime planchet. This mint-era masterpiece sold for $94,000. But here's where things get really interesting. The holy grail of 1,953 nickel errors is the double struck, rotated in collar variety. This occurs when a coin receives multiple strikes while rotating between impressions. Only 3 examples are known to exist, with one selling for an astounding $267,500 in 2022. The rotation between strikes creates a ghostly, overlapping image that's immediately recognizable to experienced collectors. Let me share another collector's story that might inspire you to check your change more carefully. Michael Zhang, a restaurant owner in California, noticed something odd about a 1953 nickel he received as change. The coin showed clear signs of being struck through grease, a manufacturing error where lubricant on the dies creates a partially filled strike. While most grease strikes are minor, this example was so dramatic that it left Jefferson's portrait almost completely smooth. That coin sold for $28,750. Here's a crucial tip for identifying valuable 1953 nickels. Invest in a good magnifying glass, preferably 10x to 20x power. Pay special attention to the mint mark area, the date, and all lettering. Look for any signs of doubling, particularly in the words Liberty and Monticello. Even subtle doubling can significantly increase a coin's value. You'll also want to examine the edges carefully. A properly struck 1953 nickel should have sharp, well-defined reading. Any distortion or unusual patterns could indicate a valuable error. Some of the most valuable examples show what's called a railroad rim, a raised, ring-like effect around the entire circumference. Temperature and striking pressure variations during minting could create what collectors call strike-throughs. These occur when foreign material gets between the die and planchet during striking. The resulting impression can range from subtle to dramatic. A 1953 nickel with a spectacular strike-through error, where a piece of wire created a distinct groove across Jefferson's portrait, sold for $34,500. The condition of your 1953 nickel matters tremendously. Mint state examples. Coins that have never been circulated command the highest premiums. Look for coins with original luster and minimal contact marks. The highest grade assigned to a 1953 nickel is MS 67, and these can sell for over $10,000 even without any significant errors or varieties. Let's talk about toning, the natural coloration that develops on coins over time. While some collectors prefer bright, untuned examples, others seek out nickels with attractive rainbow patterns. A 1953 nickel with exceptional target toning recently sold for $12,800, despite having no significant errors or varieties. The toning must be natural, however, as artificial toning can actually decrease a coin's value. One of the most overlooked aspects of 1953 nickels is the reverse design. Pay close attention to the steps of Monticello. A full steps designation, where all 5 steps are clearly visible, can multiply a coin's value significantly. In 2020, a 1953 D nickel with full steps and spectacular toning sold for $21,850. Here's another collector success story that might surprise you. David Parker, a construction worker from Texas, found a 1953 nickel with what appeared to be a bizarre ripple effect across the surface. After examination by experts, it was determined to be a rare late die state error, where the die had actually begun to deteriorate in a unique pattern. That single coin sold for $42,300. The most recent discovery that has the numismatic community buzzing involves a 1953 nickel struck on a copper cent planchet. Found in 2023 by a metal detectorist in Virginia, this wrong planchet error represents one of the most significant finds in recent years. The coin is currently being offered at auction with estimates exceeding $200,000. Now, let's address the million-dollar question. Could there really be a 1953 nickel worth 7 figures? While no example has sold for that much yet, there are theoretical possibilities. A perfect storm of errors, perhaps a double-struck, wrong planchet error with significant rotation and clear date visibility, could potentially break the million-dollar barrier. The key is documentation and certification by respected grading services. Before we conclude, here are some essential tips for protecting potentially valuable 1953 nickels. Never clean your coins. This can severely reduce their value. Store them in appropriate holders away from extreme temperatures and humidity. If you believe you found a valuable variety or error, have it authenticated by a reputable grading service before attempting to sell. Remember Tom Henderson's coffee can discovery? He almost spent that $45,000 nickel on a cup of coffee before noticing something wasn't quite right. The moral of the story? Take your time examining your coins. The next great 1953 nickel discovery could be sitting in your pocket right now. The hunt for valuable 1953 nickels continues to this day. New varieties and errors are still being discovered, proving that this seemingly common coin still holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. Whether you're an experienced numismatist or just starting your collecting journey, the 1953 Jefferson nickel represents an exciting opportunity to find something truly extraordinary. The 1967 Jefferson nickel, a coin that might be sitting in your change jar right now, potentially worth a life-changing amount of money. Today we're going exploring the hidden treasures within this 5-cent piece that could be worth thousands or even millions of dollars. Let's begin with the basics of the 1967 nickel. The U.S. Mint produced over 2 billion of these coins across their Philadelphia and Denver facilities. They were struck on copper-nickel planchets, weighing exactly 5 grams, with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters. standard specifications that seem ordinary until they're not. Back in 1967, coin production was booming. The mint workers were pushing machinery to its limits, working overtime to meet the nation's coinage demands. This pressure created the perfect storm for errors, valuable errors that collectors desperately seek today. Take the story of Mike Robertson, a Tennessee coin collector who discovered a 1967 double-die obverse nickel in a roll of coins from his local bank in 2019. What seemed like a regular 5-cent piece turned out to be worth over $3,000. The doubling on Jefferson's profile was so prominent that it caught his eye immediately. But double dies are just the beginning. The 1967 nickel holds secrets far more valuable. One of the most sought-after errors is the off-center strike. When a planchet isn't properly aligned during striking, the result is a coin with part of its design missing. The more off-center, the more valuable, as long as the date remains visible. A 1967 nickel struck 50% off-center recently sold at auction for $12,500. The strike itself tells us another story. During normal production, dies should strike the planchet once with tremendous force, creating the coin's design. But sometimes, things go wrong. Multiple strikes can occur, creating what collectors call double strikes. These errors happen when a coin fails to eject properly and receives a second strike. On the 1967 nickel, double strikes can range from subtle to dramatic, with values starting at $1,000 and climbing significantly based on the error severity. Then there's the elusive wrong planchet error. Imagine a nickel struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. In 1967, the mint accidentally struck some nickels on copper penny planchets. These wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable, with documented sales exceeding $50,000. But let's talk about the holy grail of 1967 nickel errors, the triple-clipped planchet. This occurs when the blank coin disc has 3 distinct curved cuts missing before striking. Only 3 examples are known to exist, and the last one sold at auction fetched $175,000. The rarity combined with the dramatic visual appeal makes this error incredibly desirable among serious collectors. The condition of your 1967 nickel matters tremendously. Even without errors, a perfectly preserved specimen in MS 67 grade can command several $1,000s. The mint state grading scale runs from MS 60 to MS 70, with each point significantly affecting value. Look for coins with pristine surfaces, sharp strike detail, and original luster. Let's explore the markers that could indicate you have a valuable 1967 nickel. First, examine Jefferson's profile closely. Any doubling in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust could indicate a doubled die. Pay special attention to Monticello on the reverse. Doubled windows or columns are telltale signs. Die cracks and cuds represent another category of valuable errors. As dies wore down during the intensive 1967 production, they developed cracks. These cracks created raised lines on coins, and in severe cases, entire chunks of the die broke away, creating raised blobs of metal called cuds. A major cud error on a 1967 nickel can be worth upwards of $5,000. One collector in Michigan discovered a 1967 nickel with a retained cud, where the broken piece of die remained attached during striking, creating a unique raised area with distinct characteristics. This specific error sold for $8,750 at a specialized auction in 2021. The placement of mint marks holds another secret. While most 1967 nickels from Denver carry a clear D mint mark, some show doubling or repunching of this crucial identifier. The RPM, repunched mint mark, varieties can command premiums starting at $500, with the most dramatic examples selling for over $2,000. Metal composition errors add another layer of intrigue. Although 1967 nickels should contain 75% copper and 25% nickel, some were struck on planchets with incorrect metal compositions. These wrong alloy errors are particularly valuable, with documented sales reaching $25,000 for coins struck on silver planchets intended for dimes. Consider the case of Sarah Martinez, who inherited a jar of coins from her grandfather in 2018. Among them was a 1967 nickel that appeared slightly lighter in color than its companions. After professional authentication, it was discovered to be struck on a silver dime planchet. a mistake that turned a 5-cent coin into a $28,500 treasure. The strike quality itself can indicate value. Look for full steps on Monticello, where all 6 steps at the building's base are clearly defined. While not an error, this strike characteristic is rare for 1967 nickels and can multiply their value significantly. A non-error 1967 nickel with full steps in high mint state condition can sell for $3,000 or more. But the most valuable 1967 nickels combine multiple errors. Consider the legendary triple error specimen discovered in 2015, featuring a double die obverse, off-center strike, and wrong planchet composition. This coin sold for $125,000 at auction, proving that combinations of errors can create exponentially valuable treasures. Die deterioration errors present another category of collectible variations. As dies wore down, they created coins with progressively weaker strikes. However, some dies developed unique patterns of wear that transferred to the coins, creating collectible varieties. Late-stage die deterioration can create coins with a distinctive, mushy appearance that appeals to specialist collectors. The strike pressure itself sometimes tells a valuable story. Some 1967 nickels received insufficient striking pressure, creating weakly struck coins with missing detail. While this might sound undesirable, major strike weakness errors can command significant premiums, especially when the weakness affects key design elements. Temperature variations during striking could create yet another category of errors. Coins struck with dies at incorrect temperatures could show unusual flow lines in the metal or distinctive stress patterns. These thermal errors are among the most difficult to authenticate, but can be among the most valuable when verified. One of the most recent discoveries involves die rotation errors. While normal coins have the reverse design oriented 180 degrees from the obverse, some 1967 nickels show different rotations. A specimen with a 90-degree rotation sold for $7,500 in 2022, demonstrating the premium collector's place on major alignment errors. The location of errors can significantly impact value. Errors visible on Jefferson's portrait or Monticello typically command higher premiums than those confined to peripheral areas. However, some of the most valuable examples show errors that affect both sides of the coin in complementary ways. Authentication remains crucial in the error coin market. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC employ experts who can distinguish genuine errors from post-mint damage or manipulation. Their certification can mean the difference between a valuable error coin and a damaged piece worth only face value. The preservation of error coins adds another dimension to their value. While all coins benefit from careful handling, error coins are particularly susceptible to damage that can diminish their value. Original surfaces, free from cleaning or other manipulation, command the highest premiums. Time has actually increased the value of 1967 nickel errors. As more coins are lost to circulation or damaged, the surviving population of error coins continues to shrink. This increasing scarcity drives values higher, particularly for the rarest variations. Modern technology has made error detection easier, but also more crucial. High-resolution digital microscopes can reveal subtle double dies that might be missed by the naked eye. However, these tools have also made it easier to create deceptive alterations, making professional authentication more important than ever. The market for 1967 nickel errors continues to evolve. Recent years have seen increased interest from investors who view rare error coins as alternative assets. This investment demand has driven prices higher for the rarest and highest-grade specimens. Studying population reports from grading services provides insight into rarity. For many error varieties, the number of authenticated examples remains in single digits. This documented scarcity supports strong valuations and suggests potential for future appreciation. The search for valuable 1967 nickel